Absolutely. Let's go.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you everyone who has joined us. This is our first episode of the Perinatal Conversation series. Now, it's very casual. I want everyone to just relax. You know, we can't see you, but we're certainly going to relax and just, you know, go into these topics and feel comfortable and you know, see where these sort of conversations take us. I know the Speak on Society community, we're very into talking about real subjects and topics and really bringing things up and bringing them to light. I mean, myself and the girls who I run the SOS team with, we have been through perinatal mental illness, but we are not doctors and we are not psychologists. So, you know, there's only so much, I guess, it's not so much that we can't say things. It's like we're mindful, you know, it's our audience and we have to be, there's a care factor for their safety. And, you know, we really just need to make sure that our information is, I guess, backed up as best as we can. So we appreciate it so much just doing this with you guys, because I feel like bringing that real life experience with, you know, people that are obviously professional and they understand everything that goes into this is just like the perfect situation. And a little bit of background for everyone. The Gidget Foundation was a massive reason for my recovery. I was linked in with a perinatal psychologist through my recovery. And she was seriously amazing. Like, I think about all the things that it's funny when someone really, when you connect with someone and, you know, you don't even realize the stuff that you're picking up. And I would say, even though I'm not suffering on any level at all really anymore, every day I think about the things that she told me, and these just things that I didn't even realize were going right in there. And I think, you know, it was a massive reason. I definitely thank the Gidget Foundation a lot for my recovery, hands down. So that's just something to mention. But everyone, we have Chris Buns on the line. She is the clinical team leader of the Gidget Foundation, clinical psychologist. Have I got that right?
Totally.
I probably stuffed it all up.
No, that's good.
Okay, good. So Chris is, and myself, Aviva, will be running the series tonight. Obviously, this is our first episode, so we're just going to play it by ear. Like I said, go make a cup of coffee. Don't make coffee at this time. It's very late. Tea. And just chill out, relax. If anyone has any questions, feel free. If we do have any time at the end, we will jump on some questions. But the main focus of today will be going over some of the questions that we put up on both Speak on Society and over on the Gidget's polls and questions. So they're the sort of things we're going to cover today, and we'll see what we get through. So, yeah, everyone, please meet Chris. Did you want to give us a little bit of an intro, Chris?
Yeah, hi. So I've been at Gidget about 6 years and was one of the therapists there before I got this position as the clinical team leader. So we have more than 50 therapists now working for us. So it's growing all the time, and we're a bunch of very passionate, committed people trying to help new and expectant parents go through, you know, whatever it is that they've been through during pregnancy or even attempting to get pregnant, and also up to the first year after they've had their baby. So we see them all the way through if we can. Do you want me to tell you a little bit about Gidget and how it started? Would that be...
Yeah, actually, that would be amazing. Just to give it some context around that, because I think, you know, a lot of people are probably quite curious around that sort of stuff, and the more we know about. So, yeah, that'd be good.
So, I mean, it's got an interesting name, hasn't it? The Gidget Foundation. And there was a beautiful North Shore, Sydney woman called Louise who took her own life because she had unrecognised postnatal depression probably 20 years ago, actually. Coming up to this year, we've got the 20th sort of anniversary of that, which is sort of incredibly sad and tragic. But out of that, her friends and family came together and got together this amazing foundation that offers free services to men, women, same-sex partners, you know, all sorts of different family types, support for when they're going through this, so it doesn't happen to anyone else. And Gidget was her nickname by her best friends. You know, remember that television show? You might be a bit too young, Aviva. But there was
Don't tell me it, we might not.
There was this television show, and she was a very sort of effervescent, bouncy character, and she always wore red and had red lipstick and red nail polish, a bit like Gidget did. So they used her sort of nickname, and also the gerbera was her favourite flower, and that's sort of our symbol. And it's an imperfect gerbera, which I think is really lovely, because it shows that none of us are perfect and things happen. So that's sort of the symbol of the Gidget Foundation as well.
How
so
amazing. Yeah. And 20 years. That, I actually didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the North Sydney office where we started was about 6 years ago. So it took them quite a long time to sort of formulate what they wanted to do with it, and to raise money, and then to start some programs.
Yeah. And just on that, it's, you know, obviously I have a tendency to start talking off, but back 20 years ago, I mean, we're struggling with the topic of things now, talking about it being okay to get help. And, you know, even now, like, I talk to people and they like, you know, it's, oh, we can't talk about that. Like 20 years ago, that would have been really hard to set up and do. So that's pretty amazing. It's not like it's been done recently and we're all talking, and the social media and everything that's out there. That's pretty amazing what sort of traction they would have had to have made to get everything rolling, and to be able to offer that to people. And for me, like, it was my saving grace, you know, and especially it was in the middle of COVID. So I was like, I couldn't leave the house. Like, I mean, I don't know what I would do, honestly. It was just like an absolute amazing experience. And I did telehealth at the time. So it was just amazing. So amazing things you guys are doing. So incredible.
Yeah. I think that last year was particularly rough, wasn't it? If we go off on that sort of tangent, I think we worked out, we've done about 20,000 consultations since we started. And a lot of those were in the last 18 months, like a massive proportion of that. And I think, because of COVID, and maybe because we've expanded and we've got more rooms and more therapists now as well. But I think the need was huge, and people were stuck at home. And we were lucky in Australia, but we still were impacted, you know, an awful lot, especially in mums, and not having mothers groups, and, you know, just having to cope with so much more on their own.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm sure we will go into this, because I think I received my little baby book from the Gidget the other day with my little Eddie in there, and I got so emotional when I looked at it, because I haven't had time to really process it all. But I remember thinking in the pregnancy, and I gave birth in the middle, like I actually got antenatal depression, so I got sick in my pregnancy as opposed to after, and then I carried forward. It carried post. But I remember thinking, like, this is my third baby, and this is the most horrific experience of my life. I can't even wrap my head around what new mothers would be going through. And I just remember thinking that over and over and over. Like, can you imagine not having that context of motherhood, and then not having that support, not having the mothers group, not having mum and dad over, like, not one being able to fly, you know, to come and help. And it's just mammoth change for new parents. So I can imagine how guys have been just helping people.
There was so much grief and loss. And I think the book that you mentioned, that's a lovely sort of tribute that Gidget initiative, one of the initiatives they have, is that every baby that was born last year, parents have been asked to put photos of their babies in that book. So, you know, such an impact on you, just because it takes you back there, you know, what at that time when you look at it. Yeah,
and this year's been such a survival for everyone that I mean, I've thought about it, but it's been such survival, like one step at a time, that I haven't actually sat and looked at it. I knew it was in there, but then when I actually saw the print, I was just like, oh. So anyway, that's a whole other topic, but thank you guys. I could cry yesterday when I got that. But no, I obviously needed it.
That's nice to have. It's nice to have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right. So tonight, we're going to touch on our main subject's going to be around prevention strategies. So obviously this is really, really important because prevention for anything is so, so important. And I guess, I don't know how to put this, but before, we all hear about prevention stuff when it comes to postnatal depression, or, you know, if you've got this, or this is in your family, or all the little things, but it doesn't really connect with you. It's kind of just facts on a piece of paper, or if you get notified, you know what I mean? So it's really good to know this stuff because you can really prep yourself. And, you know, people that have been through postnatal depression or been through mental illness, in, you know, pregnancy, pre or post, know that if they've been through it before and then they go through another pregnancy, well, this is usually the people I speak to, they're so prepped for that next pregnancy. Those brave families that go through it again, they are so prepped, like they know it happened before, it may happen again, I'm going to have this person lined up, this referral, and it's like this big thing ready to go. And I just, when women tell me that they've got that ready and that they're going and they're pregnant and having it, I just think, oh my God, this, like, I know you'll be fine now. You know what I mean? Because they're just ready. So if people have that already, knowing these things, not based from an experience where they have to put these things because it's, you know, from a bad experience, if you actually have it there, even if you haven't had an experience, it'd be really, really beneficial. I know that if I had no awareness of mental health when I fell sick. I mean, I have seen it before, but and I definitely had some struggles here and then, no more than anyone else. But I had no idea how to cope with what happened, and I am 100% positive that 50% of the reason why I fell the way that I did was because I went into complete panic, and I had no tools. I couldn't advocate. I couldn't. No one could advocate for me. No one saw it coming for me. So I didn't see it coming for me. I had nothing set up, nothing. I was like out in the middle of the ocean without anything. So I think if people have this, it's a good place to start this prevention stuff. Prevention strategies and things that they can do, or at least know where to go. If that helps someone, like, you know, halfway, then, you know, they're on.
I think it's good, isn't it? Because that sort of eases a lot of anxiety and fear if you've got a plan. I mean, I think that perinatal, because we call it perinatal anxiety depression, so it can happen during the pregnancy, which is what you're saying, Aveva, and then it can develop, and it often does develop then, but maybe new pregnant women don't realize they're feeling a bit different. They feel like maybe the pregnancy, this is how it's just going to be, and it's just going to feel really weird and a bit more anxiety creeping in, but most of it does start then. And then it just, I think, becomes more obvious when you've actually got the baby on the other side, you know, with the sleep deprivation and hormonal shifts, and maybe, you know, but some people can have so much in place, like supports, and have really good coping skills and all of that stuff, and still get it. So we say, Gidget, that it doesn't discriminate, you know, it can happen to anyone, but it's really treatable, and it responds to really good care. But you're right. I mean, I think prevention is key, and I think that's what we're trying to focus on a lot at Gidget, is to try to get more women who are actually pregnant, so we can talk about what's happening, let them know what to look out for, and then put some plans in place. It just helps them manage that sort of part of their life, I think. But then it's not a guarantee. So you want to, you know, how you're saying how we talk real. It really isn't a guarantee. It's a good thing to have in place, and it definitely will help you manage. And I think also, even if, because you know how you were saying you couldn't access things, like it sort of froze you a bit in terms of what happens. And that's what happens. Yeah, the paralyzing. So you get that when you get depressed or anxious, you can't often access the stuff that's in there, right? It's just not able to be accessed. So, but if you've got a plan, even if you can't sort of access it or put it in place, at least the plan's there for someone else to be able to help you with it. If you can say, if I start to do this or this, please talk to me, take me to the doctor, call this friend, you know, or call Gidget or whatever it is. Like, at least if you've got a plan, someone else can do it if you're not able to.
Yeah, it's like you don't need to use anything other than you put everything in place, and then it's like it's all there for if you need it. You may never need it. You may need it.
That's
you know,
right.
like you said, it's prevention. It's not guaranteed. But I know that, you know, being told that I was going to be okay, because I did actually start treatment, doing prevention stuff when I was pregnant, and I just had to trust that things were going to be okay. And I, you know, no one can guarantee that, but just having that reassurance and knowing what I was dealing with and that it was going to eventually go away, which I didn't, no matter what anyone told me, I had no feeling that it was ever going to happen, but there was like that little chance that I knew, and I held on to that little piece so tight, and it got me through. And thank God. So, you know, I just think having these sort of things are really, really important. And then at the end of the day, just if it does happen to you, just someone telling you like, okay, this has happened, this is what we're going to do, it's going to be all right. And sometimes women and men and mums and dads just need to hear that, because it's a really, really scary experience, and it's life-changing. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely want to talk about it as much as we can on Speak of Society. Again, we are limited to how much information we can give from a you know, professional health point of view. So it's good that we can go through that stuff with you today.
So I'm just thinking in terms of prevention, apart from sort of knowing what the signs are, do you want to talk a little bit about the sort of things to look out for? Or something like that. Would that be helpful?
Maybe the signs of like what to look out for, like the potential early sort of things, and then we can like follow it through, like almost like a timeline sort of thing, and do it that way.
So I think during the pregnancy, if you're just not feeling yourself, you know, like if you don't enjoy things, the things that you normally would enjoy, you stop enjoying. You know, if you're sort of maybe isolating yourself a little bit more, not wanting to see friends, and this can happen afterwards as well. So some of it I think is normal, because you sort of want to sort of bunker down, and you enjoy being home maybe a little bit more, and you're a bit more uncomfortable maybe physically, and you just maybe don't want to go out as much. So I think part of that's normal, but when it gets to the point where you just don't want to see anybody, you know, and you're maybe not looking after yourself hygiene-wise, like can't be bothered to shower or focus on those sort of things, I think are sort of signs as well. Being afraid to leave the house, you know, even with someone else, those sort of things. And then when you have the baby, things like checking on the baby all the time, you know, and excessively, or not being able to maybe rest or feel a bit settled when the baby is sleeping. So not being able to rest when they are. I think that's a really good sign that anxiety is sort of peaking. And sort of physical symptoms, you know, like stomach upsets more than usual, or more headaches, feeling really lethargic, no energy. I mean, it's hard because some of those things new mums are going to feel anyway. So it's just sort of working out, if you sort of put together and make a list of all the stuff that you're feeling that's not usually you, and then has this been going on for a couple of weeks, and nothing you do fixes it, you know, or makes you feel a little bit better, I think that's when you try and reach out to someone. And your eating goes a bit all over the place, eating, sleeping, which can happen anyway after babies, but sort of more than you would sort of expect, you know, I think is the key.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, how you were saying about in the pregnancy, if you start thinking, you know, a little bit different, or you notice things that your enjoyment, like for me, it was really subtle things, but like, again, I didn't want to any of it, and it was going on for months before it really hit me. So there's just little things. And now this is why I swear by journaling, because, you know, if you can journal these things, you can actually go back and be like, hang on, like,
true.
Not, you know, you don't have to write a story. Like, I don't know, many people have time for that, and if you love it, go for it. But like, you know, writing, I just had these weird things, and it was like that for me. It kind of just consumed me very slowly, and then I was just like, hang on, and I'd already got a mental health plan before it hit. That's how like onto it I was, but it's still like, it didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I went to my doctor and I was like, hang on, there's just something something not right. And then I think it was 2 weeks later where it was all just came crashing down.
Yeah.
But with those sort of things, when you're pregnant, it's like it's you and your thoughts, because and that's what you're used to. Gosh, I had a really good point. I hope that I remember this. What was I trying to, but when you have a baby, it's so new. So you don't, you think, oh, well, this is new. So this is a new feeling. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? It's like when you're pregnant, you don't notice it. Like you might notice it a bit more, maybe because it's, you know, your thoughts just completely change all of a sudden, and you think, hang on, like I haven't really thought like that before. But when you've got the baby and you're not sleeping, you're like, oh, okay, well, this is why I'm thinking like this, because my whole world's changed. I'm not sleeping. There's this person here. And so it's so hard to identify. And
it is, isn't it? I mean, you were lucky that you sort of sensed that something was going on, but a lot of women don't. They don't really realise. They just might not feel great, or they might be too ashamed to say anything, because, you know, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be the best time and you should be so happy. And for a lot of women, it's not like that. But it's sort of, it's hard to say, actually, I'm really not enjoying this pregnancy, you know, or I'm just not bonding with my baby. I just don't feel it, because they're worried about how other people might react around them, even though as perinatal specialists we know that that happens, and that's quite normal, and we can work through that and it will improve. They may not know that, and they might feel really bad and get more negative thoughts, you know, about themselves as a mum, and all of that, which, you know, can keep going and get really hard for them.
Definitely and those and sometimes it can just be those start of those thoughts, and if you've got the underlying you know, anxiety and depression building, if you're having those thoughts and then you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, why am I thinking this? That's why, because this, you know, maybe that's something I'm sure that's a whole other thing, but, you know, knowing from a prevention point of view, what to do when you start getting those thoughts. And I guess obviously you need to talk to a professional, but like, if there's one thing that you could say to kind of put people at ease when they have those thoughts that come, because I did, and I was like, whoa, like, why am I thinking it must be real? Oh my God, I can't be bothered.
Can you give us an example of Eva, or what sort of thought you had that you're talking about?
Mine was completely unrelated to the pregnancy. It was so weird. I was watching a show one day, and I was just my hormones, and I've now realized, and I will talk about this a bit more, but I've gone on to, let's say, doctor after doctor after doctor, and I've actually completely worked out that I've got a complete hormonal imbalance. Like, ever since I had Eddie, I had Hashimoto's disease, and everything that had to do with hormones, my whole body was completely out of whack. But when I was 20 weeks pregnant, I was just having these odd thoughts, and I'd never really thought about it. And just, I've always had a little bit of an underlining obsessive personality, and you know, just, you know, how people think, oh, you know, I've got a bit of OCD. Like, it was just so mild. But as soon as the pregnancy hit, I was just, everything affected me. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't watch like crime shows that I love. I was like, immediately, my thoughts, which were so, I was so detached from things. My whole life, like just normal, watching a show, you watch like a, you know, some people don't like horror movies and stuff, but I love them because I'm a thrill seeker and stuff, but I love like true crime stories, and then all of a sudden, the fact that it was true, it really scared me, and I was like, oh my God, what happened to their daughter? And I was just like thinking about, and then I thought, oh my God, what have I done? And I started just ruminating, and then I just thought, oh, it's not right. And I just remember my mum and just thinking, did you get this? Like, what's going on? She's like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. That's really not sound good. You go to the doctor. And then that was so good that she said that, because I don't think I would have got that early thing. But, you know, maybe she didn't know what to say at the time. And I guess people don't know what to say. But if people do start having those thoughts, it's just important to know that they're not 100%, well, they're not really always fact, right? They're just kind of,
I know what you're talking about.
It's arising, and
so we call those intrusive thoughts, and there's sort of an obsessional nature to them, and it's usually, it can be things like, and if this triggers anything for anyone, please let Aviva know, and she's got my details if anyone wants to chat after this Insta live session as well. But they're called intrusive thoughts, and people get those, and it's usually a sign of just incredible distress and anxiety.
Yeah.
So, but people don't know that at the time, and like they think they're going crazy, or they actually think they're going to carry out what they're thinking, but it is just a thought. There's no intent usually, and it's just a thought, and thoughts can't actually tell you to do something, right? You've actually got to do it. So it's separate. So I think it's important to go, it's just a thought like any other thought you have during your day. Like, you know, I've got to ring Chris and get the Insta sorted and make sure I can speak to her. And that, so, but you don't pay maybe as much attention to those thoughts because they're not as distressing.
Yeah.
So these fleeting thoughts come and go like thousands of times a day, and more than 80% of new mums and dads too get these anxious, driven, intrusive, scary thoughts that something's going to happen to the baby, or they're going to drown the baby, or they're going to fall down the stairs. Like you just get these little visions of them.
Yeah.
I remember, I remember getting some too, and I think some of it's very normal. And I think if you just, but to me, and it can be a very shameful thing to sort of admit as well. It's not a suicidal thought. It's a thought driven by anxiety and overwhelm. And they can be really crazy. They can be sexual in nature. They can be really violent. And people get so worried about telling us that. So one of the questions we usually ask in sessions is, are you getting any scary thoughts? And then people go, okay, actually I am. And let me tell you, maybe they might start with one to see how we respond once, you know, and see if we can handle what they say, and then hopefully tell us a little bit more as they trust us a little bit more. But I think it's a very normal thing to experience, but it freaks people out a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people that I've spoken to, and obviously I've read a lot of stories, and obviously I read and review everything before they go up. So I've heard like a million people's stories, and it's so often that people talk about these intrusive thoughts and how when they tell their therapist, they're like, well, she didn't flinch, and I just didn't understand why. And it's like, because it's so common, and they're not flinching because they're not worried about it, because this is, you know what I mean? It's very, very normal to have, but it's very, very good to get that help immediately when you start having them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
because then you can, if you can bring the anxiety levels down and help that person settle, the thoughts they'll dissipate. They might still be there. Yeah. So what you do is you help that person not fight them off, because I think one of the worst things you can do is fight them off. So you can't control it. Like if I say to you, picture a pink elephant, you've got that there now. So if I say get rid of that pink elephant picture, it's still in your mind. Like, so you can't like get rid of stuff. It's there, right? So it's like
elephant. That elephant's used for every example. That elephant. Yeah. Every psychologist I've spoken to, they're like the pink elephant.
Oh, I used to like chocolate chip ice cream, because that's my favorite. Like peppermint chocolate chip ice cream, but that's just more of a mouthful. So yeah,
but it's so true, isn't it? And like we will talk about this another day, because we'll probably talk about this first, but I went through this, so it was the biggest thing for me, this intrusive thoughts, and I can honestly say I don't have any anymore, and I cannot believe it, because it was the most traumatizing thing I've ever been through, and that was, I think, what drove everything for me, everything from start to finish. And other baby unit, but I can honestly say I live with absolutely no intrusive thoughts now, and when they do come, I'm like, oh yeah, there you go. And it's because of the understanding.
That's it. There you
like,
go.
hey.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So that's what you do. You go, hey, oh, there you are. Yeah. All right. And then you can distract yourself or move your energy somewhere else, or, you know, they probably won't last very long. They're probably just flapping through, maybe a minute at the most, and knowing that it will pass like every other thought, and not to pay too much attention or get too distressed by it, but maybe treat it as a signal of being a bit overwhelmed. And so, okay, I'm getting more of those thoughts. So what do I need to do? I need to go and do something to settle myself.
Yeah,
you know,
and get a mental health plan and do something like that. Go to your GP, you know, that sort of stuff.
It's different to psychosis as well, which when people go into that state, they probably don't show distress when they're thinking those thoughts and that sort of thing. So most of the women that we see at Gidget will show a lot of distress about thinking that, and that's a good sign that they're uncomfortable with having those thoughts too. I mean, someone's saying on the chat medication can help too. Well, I think there is a place for medication with depression and anxiety. It doesn't work for everybody, and you've got to get good advice. and get it monitored well and ease into it and then ease off it when you've been, you know, pretty stable for a year or so. But there is a place for it. But I think if someone has pretty moderate to severe depression, it probably will be talking therapies and maybe some other complementary medicines, you know, that might be acupuncture or doing some yoga or, you know, as well as potentially medication. So I think we've got to look at a lot of things and look at what's happening in the family and if they've got a partner and lots of different ways of looking at it and treating it from more different angles.
So true. And, you know, when I was trying, because I need to fix everything and, you know, just people that I'd speak to and myself, I just needed to know exactly what was going on. So I was just like, whatever, what is actually going on? Can you just tell me what's going on? I'll fix it. Like, I don't have time to be such a, you know, and I just remember people saying, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm like, this is just not working for me. I'm just, could you just tell me what it is? Like, I'll just take a Panadol or whatever I need to take. And, but, it's been such a journey of legitimately everything. It's been medication for me. It's been therapy for me. It's been, you know, underlying diagnosis with ADHD with me, which I had no idea until I had my third baby. It's, you know, massive contributor. And then finding out that I've, you know, got some hormonal issues after having Bubby and, oh gosh, getting back into exercise, doing Speak on Society, it's literally been like 1% out of every little thing has worked towards, you know,
it's changed your life, Aviva, it sounds like.
Oh,
but
honestly.
In a really good way, you know, like I think people go through incredibly rough times and they want to be rid of it, get through it. But I think afterwards, when you reflect back on it, even though it's been really rough, like it really opens your mind and makes you really understand what other people go through, you know. And so often, like yourself, like you're one of our Gidget angels and you help speak up about perinatal anxiety, depression, help others. So I think that's really lovely way of sort of healing as well. It's really nice.
I think that's the main reason why I have, because it's just, you know, and you know, helping other people has really helped me. I didn't really realize why or how. It kind of just happened organically, but it has really helped. So it's just, you know, all these sort of things that you can do, but like you won't know at the time. It's about getting that help and you know, like talking about it. And if only we could talk about it more, right? Because I feel like sometimes people just don't really go into these details because they're too scared to talk about everything that's involved.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you're bringing it all out into the open. You can see from the comments, people are finding it, you know, useful. It's good. And keeping it real. I really think that's such a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is amazing. All right, I have no idea how we're going for time. Oh, okay, there's the time. All right, so is there any other prevention strategies that you want to go over, or do you want, I think we've also got some, so we could, and we'll also put some information up after, so we can put all sort of stuff after that. Is there anything else?
So I think it's working out your supports, what to do if you start to fall apart a little bit, and who you would like your partner or yourself, if you're able to sort of reach out to, and even writing down a list of things that normally help. Because you know how you said you couldn't really access them. Sometimes if you've got a list somewhere like on your bedside table or on the fridge, or things that actually feel good, whether it is just running through the grass with bare feet or on the sand, or, you know, doing some meditation or ringing a best friend or having a bubble bath, you know, or even if your baby's asleep, make sure maybe your partner's around, go and have a longer shower than usual, you know, and really concentrate on the bubbles and the smell of the shampoo, or go and buy a really nice body lotion. Or sometimes those little things can at least get you through and feel good for that little amount of time, and gives you a break from maybe feeling down. I mean, it sounds a bit simplistic, but I think sometimes those little things are things that get you through when you're having a really tough day. So sort of being realistic too about what to expect, not having really high expectations of yourself, being realistic what you can get through. Keep things simple, you know, whilst you're pregnant, and also after you've had your baby, and get help in. Do exercise, like you mentioned, you know, anything that sort of makes you feel good. Have your good supports around you if you can. We also, like for people in rural and remote areas, I mean, we go all Australia-wide, and we have counselling services face-to-face as well as via telehealth with our Start Talking program. So we find too people in more remote areas go onto our Gidget Virtual Village, which is our Facebook site, and there's one for mums and one for dads, and it's the most lovely, supportive environment and community.
Yeah.
So people can do that too if they've got a question or they're just feeling crap. You know, often we'll have a look at the comments the next morning and we can see how many have happened overnight when people have been up by themselves feeding or whatever. So just sort of working out ways of getting support, even if you're sort of far away from being able to do face-to-face or going to a coffee shop with a friend. If that's not possible, you can get online if you're in the country somewhere.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think connection and talking about things is so, so important. And yeah, jumping online and talking to other people is, yeah, I wasn't really, funny enough, like I've always had social media, but like I was never really into it until I loved it. But like I would never go on and interact with people now.
Yeah.
Like my lifeline, and I know so many others. So like, and you know, the Facebook page, which we'll put in the post where to find it and everything like that. It's such a good page, and you know, all the girls are so, and guys are so supportive, and really, I think you just don't really realize how good it is to be connected until you actually see the benefits from it. So like, if you're feeling like, oh, that's not me to talk about that sort of stuff, it's a really safe environment, and you know, just try it out. If you don't like it, fine. But like,
you could even just watch it for a while, you know. It's not like you have to interact. You can just watch it and see how other people respond to some of the things that the mum and dads ask. And then you can sort of get a feel for if you like that sort of thing.
You don't have to say a word, you observe, and some people are like that, and that's great too. You know, some people get it out by expressing themselves or just reading sort of thing. So that's, very, very important. Now, so we've covered off prevention. Some of the questions we had, do you want to just got a little bit of time?
Yeah.
Do we have time for one more question, do you reckon? I think we do.
Sure.
Whatever you reckon? I think we do.
Sure.
Whatever we don't cover off, what was that?
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. Righty-o.
So did you want to, have you got a question, or was it around the 6-week mark, that one that had come up?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So there's a question here. Is there something about the 6-week mark postpartum being a risky time for mental health? Someone's asked this via the Gidget polls. Yeah.
So it's interesting, isn't it, the 6-week thing? I was thinking about it. I think that's when you have your first checkup, isn't it, really? So maybe there's something in that. Also, that the uterus goes back to its regular size, what it was before, about the 6-week mark. I think you have hormonal shifts then. And I think by then the sleep deprivation has probably kicked in a little bit. The shine of having a new baby has possibly worn off. Those really happy sort of hormones in our body are probably settling a little bit as well. So I think there's hormonal,
like less of the
yeah, exactly. And I think the reality is hitting in, you know, getting people a little bit as well. And then you go to the obstetrician, if you have one, or the midwife or doctor, and get your checkup, and they say, okay, you can resume sex now, you can resume exercise. And I don't think people's heads are in that space whatsoever. So it's sort of like you have to then make decisions about how they look after themselves, and with gentle exercise, and, you know, speak to their partners about the intimacy side of things and how to go about that, which, you know, clearly is a bit of an issue and needs a fair bit of discussion and patience and all the rest of it. So I think also around that mark, if they've gone to the obstetrician and they've had maybe a birth trauma, which we haven't sort of talked about, and about 1 in 3 women sort of say that they experience their birth as traumatic. So that's a lot. That's in Australia. That's a lot of people, isn't it? So they often don't tell their medical person at that checkup that they're still suffering as well. So possibly all of those things combined, then those depression and anxious feelings might kick in a little bit more because of all of that, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You know, I don't know if this is, I always love to, don't mean to, but bring up controversial things, but do you think that the 6-week mark, whatever, and I'm not 100% sure, and obviously it varies country to country, But do you think that like what do you think, in your personal opinion, and feel free to not answer this, but like what do you think needs to change at that at those checkups? Or do you think that they are beneficial as they are? Like, what do you think potentially could be brought in so that women did feel comfortable and men did, like, you know, that's that point where people could start talking about things like, I mean, I don't know, last thing, I'm very active and I love my running. Last thing I was thinking about was exercise and all the other things that get brought up. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people aren't completely honest on, you know, I know this is sometimes with your midwife, but your scores and stuff like that, when they, you know, I don't know. This is, maybe I'm not even asking a question here. Maybe this is where my brain goes. Like, what could change around to make people feel more comfortable? Because maybe
I think it's
a
how
big
society
topic.
portrays women.
3 minutes left.
Yes, I think it's how society portrays women, you know, in recovery. You see it on social media, and women in their bikinis 6 weeks after, which is outrageous. I mean, fabulous if that's you, but most of the time it's not, right? So I think that we need to check in on people's mental health at the 6-week check and see how they're going, and make that quite an open conversation, and get rid of the stigma and the shame around not feeling so good after you've had a baby, and that the reality is that it's really difficult, and there's such a mix of emotion and physical and spiritual changes and all sorts of changes. It's the most massive transition you can ever go through. So I think like a really thorough, exploratory, open conversation at the 6-week mark would be really great. And then that's sort of on an individual level, and on a society level, a lot more education around what it really is like, and how it can be really difficult, and that there shouldn't be any pressure, and everyone has a different journey in terms of their recovery and after babies, and just getting it out there like we're doing, things like that. All of that helps.
Yeah, it's a big job. Like, it's a big thing, isn't it? And it's like society, and, you know, good on those women that post that sort of stuff. That's amazing. But, you know, like, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's like, well, I mean, your body is like, you've just carried a baby. You're not like, you've literally just like, there's no pressure. There's no reason to, feel pressure and from things that don't matter. Like, you should be focused on other things and looking after yourself and going easy on yourself. Like, that's a big thing. And maybe
because the baby gets checked on so regularly, right? The baby gets regular checks. I think the new mums and the new dads also need more checking on their mental health by people who are trained in perinatal care.
Agreed. And on that note, I did I've put a post up before on Speak on Society, but I know the quote said something. It was via a doctor that said we need to know how, it is directed at mums, this one, but we need to know how mum is, and really ask her how she is, something along those lines, because if we don't get it from her, she's not going to come back. And that's like, meaning like she's not going to open up to that person again if we don't, like, it's that opportunity. And I know I've said it all wrong, and I'm going to go back at it and look, oh my God, I've completely like beautiful quote.
No, I know what you mean. It's the first checkup, and it's such a key time. And then after that, we don't know when that new mum is going to come back. So it is so important.
That's what I mean.
That right. Yeah.
And even if they do come back, they might not ever open up about their, you know, what's going on in their mind, just maybe what's going on physically, but not mentally, because at the first time it wasn't safe, or, you know, it's not so much the person's not doing anything wrong. I just don't think we're doing enough. And I don't think we're doing enough either. Yeah. And I just think, I mean, look, that's a whole other thing. But anyway, I think how are we going for time? We are over time. Yes. All right. Well, we can talk, can't we? It's good. We'll have lots more to talk about next time. Is there anything else you wanted to cover off, Chris? Or... No, I think that's good. You're going to put the Gidget Foundation details. If anybody needs to talk, please contact us. And we can have
some counselling sessions, or go and check out the virtual village online. And we also have group treatment programs as well that we run. So we run a variety of programs, and we want to help. So please reach out if you're not feeling great. We're here.
Absolutely.
And we'd love to help you.
And I will leave some links up tonight, and just, you know, anything, again, like you said, if anyone's feeling triggered by anything we've spoken about, it's very personal how you feel triggered. So, you know, it's, you know, if you do want to talk to anyone, reach out to me and I will refer you to the right people, or to Gidget.
Yeah,
but
we
if
can work
they were
it out.
to go, for the people that can access Gidget, can they go onto your website and find how to access?
They can. There's like how to get just go to your GP and get a mental health care plan. And a referral to us, and that's it. And then call, and we will put you on the wait list, and off we go, depending on where you live and what you need, so we can sort that out. But there's a lot of information on our website.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, I'll leave all those links there tonight, and we will have our next episode, I believe, on the 28th of this month, and we'll have some more topics and put some more polls up. And I'm sorry guys if you have put a question there, we will try, I'll go through all of the text and cover them at a later date. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone. Thanks
Avita.
Thanks for having me. Bye everyone.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.